this is the Provoked Prawn, and I'm here to ask the question, how much RGB is too much RGB? In this video, I'm going to be showing off how I combined a load of Corsair lighting devices with Philips Hue lighting sync to create some awesome RGB lighting effects on the desk and to result in some immersive gameplay experiences that are worth considering. You can see a number of things here, obviously a Corsair 5000D RGB that I built recently, which I'll leave a link to in the description. We've also got Corsair's lighting towers, so the LT100s, as well as a Philips Hue Go lamp, lightstrip, and Playbars, and there's the LS100 on the back. All this combined with Corsair's software allows for screen mirroring, syncing both across Corsair's devices and the Philips Hue lighting as well, which as you can see results in some pretty nice RGB effects on the desk and in your gaming space. And this really adds to the immersion. I've been a big fan of this sort of video style of effect for a long time. Now I've got the Corsair Xeneon Flex 45-inch OLED monitor here, which bends, so that's pretty nuts. I'll do a video on that soon, so subscribe if you haven't already. And I basically straightened that out and then went about installing the Corsair iCue LS100. Now I've done videos on the LS100 and the LT100s in the past. I'll leave links to those in the description so you can find out more about the setup of them and how they operate. But in this video I'm just going to show you some of the highlights and thoughts behind it, as well as how to sort of think about how to install these on your monitor, because you can actually get two kits, the starter kit and the expansion kit, and I probably should have got the expansion kit. And also things are going to get a little bit tricky with a bendable monitor, but essentially there's lighting strips that go on the back of your monitor, and if you've got an ultra wide setup, and ideally you'd do something like this, although this isn't the optimum setup. Usually you'd actually end up with two kits basically, where you've got two small strips down the sides, two long strips down the bottom, but I couldn't fit long strips down the bottom because of the design of the monitor, and also I didn't have two kits, so it's sort of a makeshift setup here, but it's still going to be nice, as you've seen already from those shots, and sticking it very carefully to the back of that super thin monitor because it is ultra thin, and then combining it with the lighting towers. So the LT100s are those lighting towers that you saw at the sides of the monitor. I'll show you those again in a second. And again, you can actually buy a starter kit and an expansion kit, so you can have up to 4 of these on your desk. What's nifty about them is that you can have them facing in 2 different directions. So they can face towards you with this diffused lighting, as I have, where you get lighting from the base and also lighting from the tower itself. But you can also turn the tall part of it around and face it towards the wall and then get lighting beaming backwards towards your wall instead. So if you don't want light shining directly in your face, you can do that. But as I said, you can combine 4 of them. Now all of these things can obviously be sorted out and combined and then controlled in Corsair's iCue software, which I'm going to show you in a minute. And you'll see they've also downloaded the Philips Hue Light Sync software as well. And essentially combining all these things gives off some pretty nice RGB. Now inside the case I've got the AL120 RGB Elites and the lighting accent triangles, as well as obviously the LCD pump head as well, so you've got loads of RGB in here. Now within Corsair's iCue software there's a section called Murals, which allows you to go through various different lighting effects. You can see some of them in action here. This has sort of video effects based on various different videos that are happening on there. Static colors, of course there's yellow, you can have blue, you can also have a variety of other ones. There's some nice effects in there and you can select what goes on. Basically is click on that and it'll apply it to the entire setup. Everything on your desk will then light up in those colors, and because it has now Philips Hue connectivity as well, so you can sync that up, there's an option in there. Now you'll see a quick setup process here that when you launch iCue and you've got it set up correctly, you can actually set up the bridge from your Philips Hue setup in here as well. So if you've got lighting strips or lights and other things like I have a play bar, for example, then you can set that up and connect that system. Now you do need to set up the entertainment area in the Philips Hue app, which is a different thing entirely, so that's done on your phone, but you can set up and install all the lights on Philips Hue, set them in an entertainment area, then just connect iCue to your bridge and it will automatically recognize that, and then you can adjust it and link it up with all these things. So it's really nice to have this combination of things with the compatibility, because it means if you've already got Philips Hue in your setup, then combine it with Corsair products, you can basically go overkill on the lighting, and it just is even more fantastic. And obviously syncing those two makes for a much nicer experience. And then in here you can see obviously we've got murals applied. You'll notice in the bottom left there. And your effects are kind of limited here. Obviously you can't reposition the lights in iCue because, as I said, that's done in the entertainment area, but you can do that in the app. Now the other thing that I would recommend doing is downloading the Philips Hue desktop app. I've done a video previously on this, but you can use this to sync separately. So if you don't want to sync with Corsair, you can sync it with just Hue. So you can switch between the two as you want to. But this also gives you desktop control of your Hue lights. So if you just want to control the Hue lights anywhere in your house, you can do this. And if you've got an entertainment area set up, this is particularly useful because you can adjust through this. Now, this is just a nice to have additional download, but I would recommend doing it because it gives you the option to change some of the things in here. But they do sort of cross talk to each other, so it's worth knowing that. You'll see if you go into the entertainment area, for example, that it's currently being controlled by iCue. So that's worth noting. And you can go into the general preferences though and set it, and you can see that there's background lighting for games and background lighting for video. So not just what's happening in games as I showed you earlier on, but also what's happening on the screen, so you can use it with movies and things. And then you can adjust things like making sure that the lighting starts up when Hue launches, and you can also adjust for the lighting in general and check your screen size. So you can see that it's set to recognize the size of my screen, which is handy because obviously if you're using that representation of linking and syncing up with your monitor, you want to make sure you've got the right setup there. Now going over to Murals again, I want to demonstrate some things. So in iCue, if you click on the Murals section, you'll see it recognizes all the devices for the most part that we have set up in the system. If you go through the list, you'll find all the different things. We've got the lighting strips, we've got the RGB fans, and all those things, and it will show you which ones are connected where. The cool thing about this is you can reposition stuff so that you can set it up and you know where things are in the case. You're also telling iCue where these things are. If you right click on them, you can go into the lighting setup and just check. So if you're not sure which fans are connected to which port, they light up on the PC, for example, and then you can also check in iCue, and then you can basically line them up. So what I've done here is tried to make it look like the case and my desk set up roughly based on that. And then you can just cycle through the various different lighting effects within Murals, which, as you've seen, is a handful of. The most interesting of which for me is the screen mirroring. But also, if you just want to apply these effects across all of them, you can tick this little circle. So you have to basically select those circles on the home page for each of these devices to apply that to all of them. And then you can go through and select them. Now, if you don't want Murals to work, you have to also untick all those boxes to turn it all off again. So the interesting thing here is you can also adjust it through the settings itself. So you click on a device and then go into lighting effects. You see that you have lighting layers, and one of the options in there is lighting link. So any of the colors and effects that you select in here will apply to all the devices. So you can see I'm doing it in towers here, for example, but you could apply rain, color wave, rainbow, color shift, color pulse, whatever else you want, and that will automatically apply to everything. Now, if you've done this and you found that it's not worked quite correctly, it might be because there's another lighting link set up on one of the other devices. So I found that this wasn't working properly, and then I went into the setup of some of the other ones, and when I went into the lighting channel on there, you could see that I've got watercolor spectrum applied. So you can layer effects, but if you do layer them, sometimes they fight with each other. So my lighting link wasn't working across all devices because on one of them it had a watercolor effect applied to it. So you might need to go into the lighting layers and delete those if you want to use lighting link. But lighting link is kind of similar to Murals in that it applies to everything. So any Corsair device in there will automatically have that effect applied to it. However, the Murals is more effective for the Philips Hue setup if you're combining both. So that's worth noting. But you can see me cycling through some of these. So this is again with the lighting effects on here. When you click on them, it applies to all the different devices in there, and you can see that happening immediately. So loads of different customization options that you can go through. So if you just want to have some nice effects or a static color, and then you can do that. It's worth noting also that hardware lighting is something to look at as well, because if you're doing all these different effects, you want to look at hardware lighting, because that'll ensure that if iCue's not running, you've got a certain color. But monitor screen is the most interesting mural selection, and that's the one you'd use to sync it up with games. So you want monitor screen. It's essentially copying what's on the screen and putting it across all the different RGB things that you have in your case, and you can see them then reacts to what's happening in the game. Now, it's sort of hit and miss. Some games are better than others. If you've got a really bright game, you can see me playing Chivalry 2 here, for example, it's a bit too overpowering. The bright lights are very bright, and so it's not as good. But if you've got a game where the colors vary a lot and you're going through dark areas and light areas and really colorful areas, then you can really notice the difference. This is from Ready or Not, which is a first-person co-op shooter, and you can see the effects in here. There's lots of different lighting zones and colorful areas in here, and it's hard to do this justice on camera, but I found that this really adds to the immersion of the experience, because you've not only got a really nice screen, but you've also got then the surrounding area in your room just lights up and matches what's happening on the screen, and it gives a really nice highlight to it and just makes it more interesting as well. Now, this isn't going to be for everyone, but you can see from various angles that it looks pretty epic. We've got some nice reflections on the desk. You've got the backlighting on the martyr reflecting onto the wall. You will note, of course, that I have a blue wall there, so it's not ideal. Perhaps if you had a white wall, it might look nicer, because some of the colours are going to change when they hit the wall, so they're not exactly matching what they should be. But the other thing is you don't have to monitor, so you can see that these effects actually aren't copying what's on the screen, because I turned that effect off, because I just wanted to see what it was like if you had just a standard mural setup. And this one is directly screen monitoring, and you'll see that the bottom of the towers isn't lighting up because it's actually lining up with the screen itself. So there's some interesting different changes that you can do in here, and hopefully you found that useful. Don't forget to check out the links in the description to the specific videos on each of these devices and find out more. Thanks very much for watching. Let me know in the comments if you've got any questions. Subscribe for more content like this. You've made it right to the end of the video, you brilliant legend you. If you've enjoyed it, click that subscribe button, give me a thumbs up, and drop me a comment down below if you've got any questions. If you really enjoyed it, consider joining the channel and see the benefits of doing so. Check out these other videos. You might well find them interesting or useful. And most importantly, have a great life.